Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Earthborne Rangers. And this is going to be a completely spoiler-free video where I give you all the beginner-level advice I wish that I had had before I started playing Earthborne Rangers. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I'm all set to tell you about some basic tips for beginners for Earthborne Rangers. Now, this will be a completely spoiler-free video. I'm not going to show you anything that you wouldn't want to see before you start. But I think of this video as things I wish I had known before I started Earthborne Rangers. So these are just kind of my tips after kind of figuring things out on my own. So at time of release, not only is the base game out, but the second campaign is out. That is Legacy of the Ancestors. So that is already out along with the Stewards of the Valley expansion and the Moments on the Path. So I'm going to talk about all of those things to some degree. But if you're watching this further in the future and maybe there's been more releases, more campaigns or mini expansions, I'll try and address some of those things in their own videos once those things are released. But that's what I'm going to cover today. But this is assuming you've played no Earthborne Rangers before and perhaps no similar types of card games, because that's the perspective that I was coming at Earthborne Rangers from. And of course, this is Table for One, so this is going to be a little bit solo focused, but it'll apply to everyone, even if you're not looking to play solo. And if you're familiar with the channel, I will let you know that the last tip on here is going to be a little bit surprising coming from me. But let's get into it. Don't forget there are chapter markers if you're looking for something specific. But the first thing you should know going into this is that the game is fun. It's often called a cozy game. I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to that, but I can see it. So potentially you'll find it to be cozy. I don't know. But I think that tricks a lot of people into thinking that the game is easy, and it is not an easy game, in my opinion. Now, I mean that in two ways. One, I mean that from a rules perspective. So there's a lot to learn when you want to play this game. That's not saying it's insurmountable by any means, nor is it the hardest game that I've learned. But this is not like sitting down and learning to play Cascadia, right? This is there's a little bit more to it than that. It's got a little bit more weight. But also, then once you know how to play, it will be challenging to play. You're not just going to coast through it. And you're not going through like a stroll through the woods on a like well-maintained trail. Like, you're hiking up this mountain, and hiking up mountains is hard, right? So one thing I want to point out from the rule book here, there's something called the delightful rule, which I think Earthborne Rangers is pretty well known for, but it says, if you are ever unsure of how to resolve a rules or timing conflict, you are invited to resolve it in a manner that you feel is most beneficial to you and your fellow Rangers. If your group cannot agree on a resolution, the decision falls to the lead ranger. So the delightful rule makes it seem, I don't know, kind of nice. And in my opinion, the delightful rule exists to encourage you to be nice to yourself, because Earthborne Rangers will not necessarily be nice to you all the time. Now, I say all that not to scare you off or make you think that it's like a really difficult game or that it's not going to be fun. Because again, I do think it's fun. A lot of people think that it's a cozy type game, but I just want to dispel the idea that this is like this easy thing that you're going to wade into and just kind of coast through it. That will not be the case. You're going to have to play this game, and it's going to put up obstacles, but that's kind of what makes it rewarding as well. So that is the first thing I wish I had known going in. And then I just want to reiterate, I guess, before I keep going, just based off that phrasing, I really, really like this game. I really enjoy Earthborne Rangers. So these are not like regrets. When I say these are things I wish I had known going in, it's just these were things I had to sort of learn on my own, and it would have been nice to just have the right expectations going in. So that's all I'm trying to do here, is help set expectations. I'm not trying to convince anyone not to play or that it'll be something that it's not. But let's go to the next thing. I want to talk about the intro mission. And again, this will be completely spoiler free, but I'm talking, of course, about the main campaign, the Lure of the Valley. This is the one that comes in the base game box. If you have Legacy of the Ancestors, that is like part 2 or chapter 2, I would say. So don't start there. Start with the core game campaign, right? But on the back of this book, we have the campaign tracker here. And so it takes place over a number of days, and you cross out one day. Each day is like a play session. And so these first 3 days, you can kind of consider them to be like an extended prologue. So some people who are really experienced with these type of games, I guess, hi, this video is not necessarily directed towards you, but you can watch, that's fine. If you're a veteran of these types of games, then I would say stick with it until you kind of get the main mission, and then take it from there. You might find that there's, I don't know, not enough to do, or you may feel a little directionless in those first 3 days. That's okay. I would say stick with it. Play a couple more days after that, and then see how you feel. But for everyone else who's new to this sort of thing, treat those first 3 days like a sandbox and just sort of learn how to play, get comfortable with the systems. And if you get through that third day and you're still like not quite certain what you're doing, and you're feeling a little bit confused, or like you're not grasping the concepts, just don't cross out that third day when you complete it. Play day 3 again and play it again. You can play day 3 10 times before you move on. That's totally fine. Just use those first 3 days to kind of figure out the systems and what's going on. Don't feel like you need to completely restart it. And in fact, if you're new to these sort of deck building character games, I say it's 100% okay to just rebuild your deck on the beginning of day 2 when you sit down to play the second day. And you can do it again on day 3 if you want. Now, I'm going to do a whole other video next week on how to construct your first deck. So I'll give you specific tips on how to do that in that video. But just know that at the beginning, you don't really know what you're doing. And as you kind of figure things out, you might be like, oh, I made some not great decisions. And if you want to go back and fix it, just go back and fix it. It's not a big deal. And once you're kind of comfortable with how to play the game and with your deck, and like, oh, okay, now I kind of get it. I think this deck makes sense. I've got my character the way that I want to play them. Then move on, then start day 4 and go on with the rest of the game. Now, my next tip is to use your days to the fullest. So you'll notice there's like a set number of days here. When you get to the end, that's the end. Now, a day can end in many ways. Sometimes you can choose to end it early, but basically you're drawing cards every round, and when your deck gets empty, then you're forced to end the day. So your deck of cards is kind of like a timer. And so in theory, if you use your whole deck and you use all your days, you can figure out how many actions you have to take throughout the whole course of the game. So I would encourage you to do everything that you can each day, because if you decide to end it early without a good reason to do so, you're just limiting the amount of actions that you get throughout the campaign, and then you may not be able to do all the things that you want to do. Now, I do note there are reasons to end a day early, and the most common way to do that is when you are traveling. You can choose to just stop at that point and make camp, and that is the most consistent way to be able to take earned reward cards and swap them into your deck of character cards. So your deck's going to evolve a little bit over the game, and that's how you put your rewards in, is you want to end the day a little bit early, but you kind of want to time it so you still maximize the most of your day, even when you're doing that. But you've got 30 cards in your deck, and if you're 5 cards in and you're like, yeah, I'll just camp now and swap in this reward card, like you've wasted most of that day. And so that's going to handicap you a little bit, because you're going to be basically playing the whole campaign more or less with one less day at that point. So again, I'm not saying there's not a reason, that there's not never a time to stop early, but try and make the most of the time that you have. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is challenge tests. So one of the main actions in the game that you're taking is tests. You're going to be taking these tests and committing effort to tests. And if you succeed the test, then you can do one thing. If you fail the test, there may be some other consequence, or it'll depend on the test. But there's tests throughout the game. It's like one of the main things you do. And when you take a test, there's also this challenge deck. Now, I will point out these are sleeved. These are the only cards in the whole deck that I have decided to sleeve, because they never get you never change this deck, you never mix it with any other cards. It's always its own deck, and it gets shuffled more than any other deck in the game. So if you start sleeving other types of cards, it kind of goes down this crazy rabbit hole, and you end up having to basically sleeve the whole box. But these challenge cards, there's just 24 of them, and you can just sleeve just these 24 cards and be done. So anyway, here's the challenge deck. So I may do a whole rules refresher video at some point on tests, but let's just briefly put on an aspect card here with some tokens on it. When you take a test, you take one or more tokens, you commit it to the test. Sometimes you can play additional cards to, improve your odds of passing the test. But after you've sort of committed whatever you want to commit to it, you then flip one of these challenge cards, right? And it's going to have numbers on it. And they could be, I guess I don't want to be flipping all day here. Here we go. Got a lot of suns there. Oops. There we go. We'll look at these. So on these challenge cards, they're shuffled up. You're never quite sure what you're going to get, but they range from from -2 to +1. So there's a single -2 of each of these colors in the deck, and when you get it, you then have to shuffle the whole deck back together and make a new deck. So there's always a chance you'll get a -2, but it's pretty rare. There's one of each of the 4 in the deck of 24 cards. Otherwise, you're going to draw a -1, a 0, or a +1. And so when you're taking these challenge tests, you're trying to achieve a certain threshold. So maybe I am doing a fitness test. So I'm committing these 2 red tokens, and maybe I need to, here, let's pick a different example. We'll use 1 awareness. I'm committing this 1 awareness token, and I need to get a total of 1, right? And I haven't played any other cards. I haven't committed anything else. So I play the 1, I flip a card, and then I add that to whatever I've committed. So I've committed 1 here, and then here's a -1. So that's a total of 0. So if I draw this card, I have failed to hit the threshold of 1 that I needed. Same with this card. This one, I would have a 2. It'd be 1 + 1 is 2, and I needed 1, so that would be a pass. So as you can see, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. It could be negative, could be positive, could be 0, could be -2, but chances are pretty low. So here's my advice on tests. In general, try to always aim to pass the test by 1 more than you need. So another way of saying that is expect that when you flip the card over, you'll get a -1. Now, I have not myself gone through the deck to try and figure out the ratios of how many +1s and 0s and -1s. Again, the -2, we know that there's 1 of each, but I haven't gone through the rest of the deck to try and figure that out. But it's common enough that you should just expect to get a -1. And then if you get a 0 or a +1, even better. If you go into the test needing exactly the number, so when I put this one down, I said I needed to get a total of 1 exactly, and I've got 1 here. That's pretty risky. That means I need to draw a 0 or a +1. That's a risky move. I don't know that you want to depend on that all the time. Sometimes you'll get lucky, sometimes you won't. Definitely don't go into a test needing the +1. The chances that you're going to get that are not very good. Needing a 0 is risky. Needing a +1 is just a bad move. So just go in expecting that you'll get a -1, and then you should be fine most of the time. Now, again, there is always a chance that you'll get a -2. I would only plan to draw a -2, so plan to beat the test by at least 2, only when it's completely necessary, or failure would just be totally catastrophic. Because if you start overcommitting to your tests, you're either going to burn through your tokens or through your cards really fast, and you just won't be able to do as many things on each your turn or each round. Because every turn you take, you're either playing a card or taking a test, and each of those things is going to require that you spend these different energy tokens. So once you're out of tokens, you rest, and that's it for that round, and then the next round starts, you refill. So you don't want to overcommit, because then you're going to be doing fewer things per round, and that means you're going to be going through your deck a little bit faster, and you're gonna burn through the day faster than you want. So don't overcommit, but plan to get a -1, and then you should be okay. Now, the next tip I have for you comes from the Team Covenant How to Play video, which I do recommend. That was really good. It was long, but it was helpful. Their recommendation is, after you perform a test, so let's say I committed one of these, I draw this card. The first thing that happens is you're going to resolve the test. You're going to be really excited about whatever the test it was you did. Oh, I passed my test, and then, or oh, I failed my test, whatever it's going to be. And that might mean that you're putting tokens on a card, or you're moving cards around, or removing a card, or shuffling something. Or oftentimes you'll be going over to the storybook, the Lure of the Valley booklet, and reading a passage out of there. And then that might have you do something. such as gaining a card or gaining more tokens or moving things around. Who knows? It might be having you make notes on your campaign guide, but you're going to get caught up resolving the test is the point. And what you don't want to forget is to resolve these challenge icons on the bottom afterwards. And if you just flip the deck here, you'll almost always forget to go back and resolve whatever the icons were. So you can see that there's 3 icons here. Again, I'll talk about this maybe in a test video, but there's crests, suns, and mountains. And all the cards that are active, maybe I'll make a video talking about what active means too, because that can be confusing. There's cards that are in play or active or ready or exhausted. It's a whole thing. But you're going to go through and look for these mountains, and anything that should be triggered is going to have other effects. So that could be the weather or the location or your missions, cards along the way, or then, there's a whole other area where there's things within reach. They might be within reach of another ranger. So you're going to have to go through and resolve a bunch of these things, and you will forget if you don't leave the card out. So I've usually got my challenge discard here where, the mat says challenge discard if you've got the mat, and I'll take my test somewhere else like here. So after I've kind of resolved all the results of my test, then I will spend the energy set aside, and then I've still got my card here to remind me to go through, check all the other cards for any other effects to resolve, and then I'll place that card in the challenge discard at that time so I don't forget. So that was a good tip from Team Covenant. Next, I just want to say that, again, there are 3 of these challenge icons, right? The crests, the suns, and the mountains, and I believe there's an equal distribution of them in the challenge deck. I think there's 8 of each. And so before you flip a card when you're taking a test, as you're considering taking a test, okay, like I'll commit this energy, maybe I'll play this card with it, as you're kind of making those decisions, look at that time at all the cards that might be affected and what their different challenge effects are, and try and figure out how detrimental or helpful any of those might be. So you can kind of, keep track through your challenge discard of how many of these icons have already passed and have some estimate of the probability of getting one icon or another. Honestly, I don't typically do that, but just look and think like, okay, there's a chance that I might get a sun, right? What will all of the sun icons do? And is that good or is that bad? And then run through it again. Okay, I might get a mountain. Then run through it again. Okay, I might get a crest. And then you can use that information to help you decide, like, how critical is it that I pass this test? Or even how critical is it that I take this test? Because again, your aspect card is going to have your energy tokens on it, and this is, I guess, related, but you do not need to use all of your energy every round. So in this case, I've got 1 awareness, 3 spirit, 2 fitness, 2 focus. It is totally okay to spend your fitness and your spirit. Maybe I spent a focus and now I've got these left. Like, I don't have a lot of energy. I've got 1 of each of these tokens. Maybe I don't have any cards to really add to the test that I'm trying to take. Do I want to take the risk? I need 1. So I've only got 1 to commit. I really need to flip a 0 or a +1, which is a little risky anyway. And then you see what the challenge icon effects might be, and those might start to pile on. And sometimes it's just better to say, you know what? I know I've got this energy, but I'm going to skip the test. I'm going to rest, get all of my energy back during the refresh phase, and then I'll get another card, and then I'll be better equipped to take this test in the next round. So do consider what these icons might be before you take a test, because that is really relevant. And don't be afraid to not use all of your energy every round. That's okay. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to give things a little bit of time. All right, so the next thing that I wish I had known before I started this game is that in Earthborne Rangers, repetition is a feature. I've seen some folks online a little bit unhappy with just feeling like the loop in this game is repetitious, and I don't necessarily disagree with that on its face, but the repetition is there by design, and I think it actually makes things really fun because you are traveling around the valley, around this map, right? And there's all these different locations and there's different terrain types. And at first you don't really know where you're going or what you're gonna find or what you're doing. And that's fine, that's good. But as you play, you will start to learn, oh, this location, when I go to that location, I can sometimes do this thing. Or when I'm traveling on this type of terrain, whether I'm going through the woods or the mountains or across the lakeside or what have you, I know that if I'm in this terrain type, I can do this particular thing. And as you acquire knowledge about the valley and its locations and its terrains, you become stronger because as you go, you learn to exploit those things and you learn how to bend the game world to do the things that you need it to do. So you become more efficient as you go based off of that acquired knowledge. So again, I said that the beginning is sort of like an extended prologue. Use that time to go explore. Just walk around, go to places, see what happens, see what you find. It might not always be good, but you're going to learn a bunch of stuff about the valley, and that will be super valuable for you later. So next, I want to talk a little bit about the different expansion sets, and if you're just starting with Earthborne Rangers for the first time, what to make of these different sets. So let's start with Moments on the Path. So I won't show you anything. This is just an instructions card, but Moments on the Path comes with with 2 decks of cards, one for the Lure of the Valley campaign and one for the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign. And so these cards, go ahead and put them in their respective boxes. I would put the one deck with the base game box and the other in the Legacy of the Ancestors box. But this deck just has path cards, just regular, this is the back of the card, path cards that look just like any other path deck. So the way that this works is if you want to use it, let me back up a little bit. When you construct this path deck at the beginning of every day session and every time you travel to a new location. So you can expect once this game gets going, you might be constructing several of these path decks per game session. The way these cards work is if you want to use them, you shuffle them, you take 2 at random and you shuffle them into the path deck when you go to a location or at the start of your day. So I would say if you're just starting, go ahead and, like I said, put these cards in their respective boxes, and the base game box and the Legacy of the Ancestors box, and don't use them at first. Get to know the game because these are just newer, different things that you might encounter in your path deck. And at any time when you feel like you kind of know what's going on and you'd like to change things up a little bit, you can just start shuffling those into the path deck. And what did I say? I think I said you put 2 in there. I don't think that's right. You put 1 per ranger. So if you're playing solo, you put 1 in there. If you're playing a 4-player game, right, you put 4 of them in there. And then you shuffle it up. So you have the opportunity later to turn that on and off anytime you want, and even multiple times within a game session. You can go to one place like, yeah, I'll shuffle those in. Then you go to the next place like, no, I'm not going to use those. So that's not a big deal. Put them in the box, leave them alone until you know what's going on. You can always add those in later super easily. The second thing I guess I'll mention briefly is the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign. So that is this box right here. You don't need anything from this box when you're just starting. Set it aside. The main box has the main campaign. Think of it again like a chapter 1, the Lure of the Valley. Play that. You won't need anything from this box until you've completed that one, and then you want to keep playing. And I think you've got the option at that time to make a new Ranger deck if you like. I think there's like a quick start in here. You could start with this one, but I don't think that's a good place to start. It kind of, for the most part, assumes you've played the first part. So just think of this as chapter 2. Set it aside until you finish chapter 1. You don't need to mess with this yet. Now, the third expansion I want to talk about, this is a little sort of mini expansion in between the sizes of Legacy of the Ancestors, which is a full campaign, and Moments on the Path, which is just a small deck of cards. We want to talk about Stewards of the Valley. So this one's going to be kind of a mixed bag, and not in terms of content. Like, it's really cool. I'm really glad I have it. But it's a mixed bag in terms of if you are new, how much of this do you want to include your first time through? So again, I'm going to do a whole video on deck construction, on how to construct your first deck. But Stewards of the Valley gives you a bunch of new cards for constructing that first deck. So I would say go ahead and fold it into your base game immediately. That's fine. It's going to give you extra starting cards for all of the backgrounds and all of the specialties, and it's going to give you aspects and personality cards as well. So just go ahead and throw those in the box. And personally, I don't even think you need to keep them separate. So I'm going to show you some cards now, but these are all cards you would see before you start the game. This is part of character creation, so no spoilers. So there's like this background forager, and then Stewards of the Valley comes with this like separate background forager with a little SOV, Stewards of the Valley marker. I don't use these at all. I just have the one for Forager, and then I've got all the Forager cards here, and all of the Stewards of the Valley ones are marked with this. You can see a little gray thing, and you probably can't see it, but it says SOV in the bottom, so you know that it came from an expansion. I've just got them mixed in with all the other, there's another one, all the other cards that come with the base game, because there's really no reason not to do that. That's totally fine. You can use them with some asterisks, which I'll really talk about in my deck construction video. But in the meantime, know that Stewards of the Valley, in addition to giving you new cards for all of the backgrounds and specialties, plus what did I say, personalities and aspects, it also introduces a new background, which is the Tail Spinner, which I would say that's totally fine. If you're brand new, you can use the Tail Spinner background if you want. And it introduces a new specialty, which is Spirit Speaker. And the TLDR is, I would say, don't start with that one. That one's more advanced. It's cool, but don't start there. That is going to be a lot. Now we'll get this Forager background back out again. Another thing that Stewards of the Valley adds is these aspiration cards with narrative cards. So for each of the 5 backgrounds, the 4 with the base game plus Tail Spinner that comes with Stewards of the Valley, one of the new cards that it adds will be an aspiration card. So for Forager, we've got it here, the Brilliant Gardener. And so it's got the little Stewards of the Valley tag, and then it has aspiration keyword here. So there's one of these in each background. Those, you'll have 2 copies of that card, are tied to these narrative cards. So each one's going to have an introduction and aspiration complete. So as you can see, my recommendation is to just keep these cards in the background deck with, just keep them with the cards that they would come with. So basically, if you choose to take these aspirations, take these 2, you read the introduction, you read the aspiration card, and eventually you try and unlock this complete part. That all being said, I would not choose the aspiration cards when you're constructing your deck on your first playthrough, because it's kind of just one more thing to keep track of. Even though they are cool, just get to them another time. That's totally fine. And then one other thing I want to point out, because it took me a long time to figure this out. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Stewards of the Valley comes with these mini Ranger rolls, and it's these cards here. And I was like, what the heck are these? How do you earn these? Okay, let me tell you what the deal is. This one says Undaunted Seeker. If I go to my Explorer specialty, so each of the specialties has roll cards, we have Undaunted Seeker. The mini roll cards are exactly the same as the regular roll cards mechanically. They just have different artwork to match the little wooden meeples that come with the game if you choose to get the little wooden meeples. So here's some of them here. And that would be this one. So if you've chosen the Undaunted Seeker, you take this little meeple, it matches that meeple, and that's your roll card. So it's just a replacement for this roll card. So I kind of like the artwork on these. So these are the ones I use. You can choose. There's just one of each of the 12 different, 15. 3 times 5, 15 roll cards, right? Yes. So you can just take the Undaunted Seeker, put it with the other Undaunted Seekers. You've got Peerless Pathfinder. You can put the Peerless Pathfinder, etc. Or so that way, when you go to choose your roll card, they're the same. They're right next to each other. You just pick the one you want, but mechanically they're identical. Or you can put them, they've got their own divider, mini Ranger rolls, and you can just keep them separate, which I do because I'm not using them because I like the artwork on the originals. But that was driving me nuts for a while. I thought they were like special cards that you earn and they would give you more abilities. But no, they're just alternate artwork for the regular roll cards. And so I've got one more thing I wish I had known before I started playing. And this one may be somewhat surprising because I'm usually so opposed to this, but try playing two-handed. I started this game true solo because that is my preferred way to play. And I kept coming back to the game because I was like, there's something here, but it was not very fun for me. I was just really frustrated a lot of the time. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And some of that was I was still learning the systems and I wasn't quite maybe playing very efficiently because I didn't really know what I was doing. But also just I couldn't do the things I wanted to do and it was getting really frustrating and it was taking me forever. And finally I said, forget it. I'm going to play two-handed. I made a second deck and I'm here to tell you that immediately the game was completely different. Everything that I expected from the game opened up right away. Like when I added that second Ranger, from jump, it was a different game and it was so fun. It was everything that I was expecting it to be. So maybe I would try True Solo again after I get through the whole campaign and I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit better just to try it out. But I am having so much fun playing two-handed. That is my preferred way to play as far as I can tell right now, and I would not go back to solo, at least through this first playthrough. So in those first 3 days, what I would recommend is when you start the game, start by playing True Solo. This is what I did, and I recommend it. Start by playing True Solo on day one, and day one will probably be a little bit rough. You're going to be learning the systems. Your deck's probably not going to be very well optimized because you don't know what you're doing yet, and that's fine. So after you complete the first play session, when you're done with day one, on day two, play True Solo again, but rebuild your deck. Just go through the whole deck building thing again, but this time you know what you're doing a little bit more. I'm sure you'll pick some different cards. You'll pick some that are the same, but you'll pick some that are different. Give that a shot. And then on the third day, add a second ranger. Because at that point, you'll have played enough that you kind of know how to manage what's going on. You're going to be more familiar with the rules. It won't be quite as daunting to try and manage the two decks at once, and it's really not that difficult if I'm being honest. The reason I prefer True Solo in most games is because I don't want the overhead. So one example of this is Spirit Island. A lot of people play Spirit Island multi-handed. People who are really good at Spirit Island. I do not. I play only True Solo. Not saying that I'm really good at it, but I'm certainly not good enough to play multi-handed. I feel like it's too much to keep my head wrapped around. I don't want the two spirit boards and the two decks of cards and two sets of energy and trying to manage who's going to do what when. It's a pain. I don't have that problem with Earthborne Rangers. So if you are the type of person who prefers True Solo like I do, and you're playing this game and it's not clicking, do yourself a favor, try it two-handed. It completely changed the way the game felt, and in all the best ways. Like I said, it was everything at that point that I hoped it would be. There was a lot more interesting interaction between the Rangers, certainly between the two Rangers, but between the two different ranger areas and along the way, all this stuff that was in the environment just started interacting in a much, much more interesting and dynamic way. And it was way better, and I never looked back. So that is my last and best tip for people who are new to Earthborne Rangers. So I will be back next week with a video on how to construct your first Ranger deck. And again, that'll be completely spoiler free. The only cards that I'm going to show are the cards you would normally see during deck construction. And I am trying something new here, releasing these videos on a different day of the week. So let me know what you think of that, just spreading the videos out a little bit. And as I mentioned, I think there's some value if I do some rules refresher videos on some of the different aspects of this game, such as taking tests or the different states that your cards can be in, such as being in play versus active, being ready versus exhausted, or maybe even some of the maybe more basic aspects of the game, like how to correctly construct a path deck when you need to do that. So if you think you would like to see some of those videos, let me know in the comments of this one, because I'm kind of unsure if I want to make a bunch of those videos or not, but I think there's some value there. If you like this, leave a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Earthborne Rangers type content. I am still toying around with the idea of releasing a series, not immediately, but at some point, of a playthrough of the campaign on this game. I think that would be super cool. But be sure to let me know in the comments, what types of Earthborne Ranger content would you like to see here? So did I hit all the big YouTube points? You got to like, you got to subscribe, share it, comment, and leave go head over to my Ko-fi page. There's a link in the description. You can leave a donation to the channel, and that would be super helpful to keep things running. But I hope this video helped you. That's what I've got this time. I will see you next time on Table for One. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week.